Liz Cheney is saying exactly what Kevin McCarthy said the day of the insurrection. She's just consistently been saying it. And a few weeks later, Kevin McCarthy changed to attacking other people. And so I think what the reality is as a party, we have to have an internal look and a full accounting as to what led to January 6th. I mean, right now it's basically the Titanic. We're like, in the middle of this slow sink, we have a band playing on the deck telling everybody it's fine. And meanwhile, as I've said, Donald Trump's running around trying to find women's clothing and get on the first lifeboat. And I think there's a few of us that are just saying, guys, this is not good, not just for the future of the party, but this is not good for the future of this country.
An anecdote's good when you can actually visualize it. Well, that's Adam Kinzinger. I remind you, he a Republican congressman from Illinois talking about his own party. In our first segment tonight, we showed you some of the gory details of the push to remove Liz Cheney from Republican leadership in the House. I want to bring in our guest to discuss, Marc Fisher, senior editor of the Washington Post. And Marc, if you could, listen, parties have gone through political seizures in our history. But can you give context to what's happening in real time to the Republican Party? Because, and again, why Liz Cheney's being pushed on live television, in effect, it's really breathtaking.
It's really remarkable. Of course, we have seen in our lifetimes some also in the Republican Party, another episode like this back in the early 90s after in 1994, after the Republicans had a great triumph with their contract with America. Later on, they ran into all sorts of internal troubles. They lost a House Speaker to a personal scandal. There was a whole kind of turning inward, turning on itself of the Republican Party, and now we're seeing that again. And again, what we're seeing is that a lot of the leaders of the Republican Party are saying that Liz Cheney has to go because she's focused on the past, and they're looking toward the future, when in fact it's the great majority of the Republicans in the Congress who are looking back at the 2020 election and clinging to the notion that President Trump was somehow wronged, and that is their reason for dumping Cheney and for attacking people like Kinzinger, who want there to be some accounting for not only the lies about the election, but also the January 6th attack on the Capitol. So this is a party very much in disarray. It's a party that is clinging to Donald Trump because they're fearful of what Donald Trump might do to them in running primary candidates against them if they were to break with him in any way or show any disloyalty to him. So it really is a party that is in many ways captive to one person.
I'm curious, you know the town very well. Kinzinger said in an earlier interview that he believes 5. That's the total people who really believe in the big lie that it was stolen. The rest are going along to get along, to the point you made, a fear of a primary or the president, trying to run somebody against him in their next primary. If that's true, and I wonder if you think that few actually believe that somehow this election was stolen from the president, my God, what does that say about the fealty that's all in at this point to a guy who doesn't even have a Twitter account?
Right. It's a fealty to someone who they really believe has captive not only the capacity to mount challengers against them, but they also believe that he has a significant following of Republicans who are really no longer Republicans in principle, but are really just Trump supporters in principle. And so, yes, I don't know if his number of true believers in the election conspiracy theory is correct, but it's a very small number. There are some Republicans who will, off the record, tell reporters that they don't believe a word of this stuff, and they're just going through it because they believe that Trump has such a hold on their voters. And then there are others who seem, at least superficially, to have drunk the Kool-Aid. But when you talk to them, they don't. It's clear that they don't entirely believe it, and they don't really believe that the election was stolen, and they do genuinely believe that Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States. So why are they doing this? Why are they so willing to give up their souls, really, for Donald Trump? And the answer really is as crass as can possibly be. It comes down to they want to hold on to their seats. all the things that they do believe in, they believe are only possible if they hold their seats, and they believe that this is the way to do it. Now, the polls don't really support that. Yes, there's still a lot of loyalty to Donald Trump among Republican voters, and there's still a lot of opposition to Joe Biden, although that shrinks by the week if you look at the polls. But it's clear that Trump is losing his hold on the public imagination because he has less entree to us through Twitter and so on. But that hasn't gotten through to folks in Congress quite yet.
But, and again, I say none of this out of naivete, just out of the pure mathematics of this. What I don't understand is you couldn't have heard Mitch McConnell in more uncertain terms as to where he believed January 6th and the responsibility of that awful day lie. And in fact, he even said to, hey, if you're prosecutors out there and you can make a case against Trump, have at it. Now, I know he didn't vote to impeach the president, but nonetheless, he made it clear that he was washing his hands, and to a lesser degree McCarthy, and I know he did the 180 when he flew down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring. That all said, they got to know by this point that words carry consequences January 6th. And now we see the insanity playing out in Arizona on the heels of what we've seen with voter restrictions. My only point is somebody's got to look, Mark, and say, wait a second. We're sending in cyber ninjas and they're possibly altering ballots, or they're looking for bamboo, and now they're going to even interview people on how they voted. Where is our basement here? I mean, is there any part where they say, all right, it's time to get off the crazy train?
I don't think so. I think the last 4 or 5 years of our history makes clear that there does not appear to be a basement. And there's really no lengths to which many Republicans won't go to stay in Trump's good graces so that they can hold on to power. That is really, as much as Mitch McConnell may have broken with the president, and he did in a very dramatic way after the January 6th attack, nonetheless, the rest of the party is following the Mitch McConnell approach to politics, which is you do anything possible to stay in power, because only by being in power can you be can you get the other things done that you want to, the appointment of conservative judges, for example. The problem the Republicans have is that they don't have a whole lot of alternative. Yes, it doesn't make sense for them to keep kissing the ring, as you put it. It doesn't make sense for them to attach themselves to lies that will inevitably reveal themselves to be lies. On the other hand, what else are they going to do? So they could reach out to the vast pool of independents and Democrats who are disillusioned by their own party and change the Republican message, change the Republican appeal. But that would be a massive turn, and they would very much jeopardize their hold on the Trump voters. So it's not as if there's an easy alternative to what they're doing. If they were to break with Donald Trump, they would jeopardize the only thing they're sure of, which is their base.
Okay, but then we get back to the calculus question, Mark, and you wrote recently about the significance of Trump being booted from Facebook. How much is there a thought in the McConnells and the McCarthy's minds, the out of sight, out of mind, that because he doesn't have the megaphone, he being former President Trump, that he used to with Twitter or Facebook, and because the headlines are only going to be bad if you think with the ongoing probes in New York City, New York State, Georgia, et cetera, for Trump, that they can basically wait him out, that before 24 he'll become so toxic that they don't have to be afraid of him as a party. Is that the math that they're looking at?
I think a lot of them hope that that's the case, but I don't think they really trust that he will fade away. And I think if you look at history, there is a certain inevitability. Populist leaders, after they're in office, after they've been defeated, their support tends to collapse rather dramatically in the first year or two after they've left the scene. Donald Trump is obviously doing everything in his power to stay relevant, to stay in the media, to get back on Twitter, and to get back in our faces. But the country is quickly adjusting to the idea that you don't have to pay attention to the White House every 10 minutes for fear that they're going to be saying or doing something outrageous or disruptive. And I think the country seems to like that. If you look at the new AP poll out today about President Biden, really extraordinary approval rates that show that the percentage of people who believe that even among Republicans, he's almost up at 50% approval of his handling handling of the COVID crisis, for example. So the Biden quiet, calm approach is working to some extent. And I think Republicans look at that and say, well, maybe we can move away from Trump eventually, but they're by no means there yet.
Marc Fisher, I really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.